Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 10, Retrieval. If you're wondering why I'm wearing a Doctor Strange robe, it's because this is a 420 review, hence the baked sushi display. So I'm high. That's pretty much it. Getting into the episode, it was good. I definitely enjoyed this episode. First off, Yuri Lowenthal was the young thief character, so I was like, hey, it's Yuri Lowenthal. He's been Sasuke, he's Ben 10, he's Spider-Man. He was going to be the Prince of Persia. Who knows when that remake's coming out? I wish they would do something with that. And if you didn't know, there was going to be a Prince of Persia remake based on the original Xbox game, and I was so excited. And Ubisoft is Ubisoft, so that's really sad. But Yuri Lowenthal was in this, and that was pretty cool. He was also the character that caught the clones, the kid that was talking when there was like they were fixing the hyperdrive and stuff, and he ratted them out. I don't know why that was Yuri Lowenthal twice. I thought that was super funny because I'm like, for me it just sounded, it was like this Yuri Lowenthal. It felt like he barely changed his voice, but he's done like a million different voices in Ben 10 before, so it's kind of like like for me it's just like I always can hear it because I've heard him do a million accents from Ben 10. So I thought that was funny, but I was like, oh, that's also Yuri Lowenthal. But I like the character. It seemed like they're introducing him as a character that could easily come back. He even says at the end, like, hey, if you ever need a thief, I owe you one. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And that's also the second time they've introduced a character. Well, technically, Gunji wasn't introduced in this, but it was the second time they had a character that was Omega's age. And it was just like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, she was the one that kind of reached out to either save one of the characters or kind of go through like that stealth mission where, they're kind of going through and she finds out that they have to fight for a bowl of soup, and kind of getting his view on his world and why he can't leave and stuff like that. It was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like they, obviously this will be like way down the line unless they do a crazy time skip in the Bad Batch. This will be like, way down the line. He'd come here like every once in a while, but at some point, if they go into comics and all that stuff, I would assume Omega's gonna live. But going forward with that, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. They could have these characters actually grow up, throughout the comics, because they do. I mean, they're doing insane comics right now. So I wouldn't be shocked if at some point, the shows eventually end and then it's like, all right, but we still got like some comics here and there for at least Omega, depending on how they do things with the other clones. So that was something I noticed in this episode, was like they can actually have established characters and go into another kind of generation of really yet another generation and iteration of something that's kind of in between the trilogies. So just thought that was fascinating. I was like, it seems like they're kind of hinting towards that a little bit, especially with the whole family thing where it's like, Echo's gone, obviously he'll come back, but it's kind of interesting that they've done that twice now, and I was just like, it was something that I didn't notice before, but it definitely caught my attention this episode. I was like, that's 2 times in one season, and it's minor things. Technically, she also met Hera in the last season, so even that could happen again where she could come back. So there's a lot of potential there, but I just thought that was fascinating. It was like there's been a couple of kid characters that definitely could grow up within the universe and kind of join Omega on some other adventures, once again way down the line. But thought that was cool. Excuse me. I like the character, like the way that they kind of handled the story of him just being this kid, trying to scrape by. And the dude is, like I said, the scene where he was eating was gross to me. I don't know why, but him having the pot of soup on the side, I was like, something about the animation was like, it's too realistically gross for some odd reason. But he was just moving back and forth, and that made it worse. I think that he just kept taking one bite or one sip, and I'm like, it was a perfect like visual of gluttony. He's obviously surrounded by food, but it was like he's taking like one bite and one sip, and he's like rushing through it all. And I was like, this is like appropriately gross for what it's displaying with like this really crappy character. It was like a great introduction to him, because I'm like, wow, it wasn't his introduction, but it was like an introduction to like a deeper scene, and it was like the perfect introduction to that, because when he first said it, I assumed that they were showing him about to go into like some meeting to show why he's like a bad guy, and then it was like, oh no, he's just going to tell them like, all right, this is who's gonna get one bowl of soup. And he's just like, they can wait till I'm ready. And he's just eating all sorts of food. And of course we find out that he was lying to everybody. They even say early on where the dude lied so hard, he was like, man, I have to lower wages just to keep this place open. It was like he had these people brainwashed, and it was just super deep. Like when you really go through the whole episode, it was like he lied to like, in a sense, a whole planet. Who knows what's on the other side of the planet. Actually, I guess we kind of do, because they went halfway around the planet, or at least to the other half. So I don't know, probably owns like the whole planet basically. And it was just like, they're all brainwashed in this little port. And this is just a dude who's eating away. I'm sure, obviously there are other characters outside of just the kids that we saw in this episode. But I was like, man, they're legit brainwashed. Like that whole port is just tricked. And he's like, oh man, the minerals are bad, so we got to drop the wages and I pay you less. And it was just like, this guy is the worst. And he died in like one of the craziest ways ever, where he just falls off a ledge. I thought they were gonna like spoon the guy to death, because like the kids were like pulling out their spoons like knives. And I was like, this is real dark. It was like some Lord of the Flies type jump at the end. I'm like, he got them fighting over a bowl of soup. They're about to like stab this dude with spoons to death, which is insane. And then of course he falls off into lava, and it was just like, huh, well, that's something. That's very interesting. So definitely got his comeuppance by the end, but it was definitely like a really crappy person. And I like the way they handled that story. And I wish I remembered the characters. Now I remember Mako, who's the villain, but Yuri Lowenthal's character is just going to be Yuri Lowenthal. But I like the way they handle his story, his journey throughout the episode, betraying them in the end. He hits the button. It's like, ah, man, he had that moment. And then of course it's like right before he got the rations for helping him out. And it's like, ooh, that sucks. But of course he got the information. He's, saves them at the very end. But I like the way all of that was done. That was an intense little sequence. It was really great Omega episode. Like she even had that moment where, Hunter's about to rescue her. And it was like, it showed like a really epic moment of trust between the characters, because she just pulls the droid over and is like, he'll catch me. Like I see him already zipline. He's got his plan. I'll just pull this thing over. He'll catch me midair. No problem. I was like, it's little moments like that where it's like, this is a kid. And she's like, he'll catch me. I'm not going to fall to my death into molten lava. It was just like, that takes a lot of trust. So it was one of those moments where it's just the bond between the characters when you see it kind of just in action on instinct. It's like, that's actually really cool. Like those are one of those really cool ways. I like when shows do that, where it's just like, especially when it's a younger character and you see how they've truly bonded with the older characters and how they, still form a great unit in moments like that. I was like, that was a cool moment. I like how that was handled, and not at all how I thought. It was definitely like the dangerous way to do it. And I was like, well, that's a cool way to do it. And it shows that trust that she could take that fall. It was like, boom, he got her. They're good to go. And of course they escaped. They had the epic moment where it was like, we don't miss. And then of course he's gonna have the droids like attack the kids. And it's like, boom, boom, 2 shots head, they're dropped down. And it was like, they don't miss. And it was like, that was actually a nice little moment too. So bad guy gets defeated. We have a character that probably is going to return. I thought that was nice. They showed the puppet. I remember that. They showed the puppet at the end, which was the one thing I remembered about the ship. I mentioned that on my whole spiel in my last review, but they also have a droid. I forgot about that entirely. This has got to be the most irrelevant combo of ship and droid in anything Star Wars. I'm sure there are a bunch of Star Wars things where they don't even have droids, but man, I feel like I have never seen a droid be less relevant as a character. I didn't even know it was named Gonki. I just forgot. I'm sure they said it. Probably not, but they probably did. And I just forgot. And I was just like, wow, I forgot they even had a droid. Omega says it's their home away from home on the ship. And I was like, wow, that's the most relevant ship I've ever experienced in Star Wars. And that was crazy to me. So I thought that was fascinating. Every once in a while they'll bring it in. But this season, I think after they found Sid, the ship has felt super irrelevant to me. Like they'll be on the ship, here's a briefing or whatever before they get to their destination, but it never feels like the ship itself is that relevant. So I guess it's just since they found Sid, that's just how it's felt. It's like, it feels like they kind of have a home, because that's where they always are. So it was funny hearing Omega be like, yeah, it's like our home away from home, which I think she does actually say home away from home. So I guess technically Sid's place is their home for now at least, but it was just like, man, it feels way less relevant compared to season 1 when that was really all they had and they were, just stopping in the ports. So it's interesting. I'm like, wow, don't know the droid, don't know the ship. It's fascinating. Normally you care so much, it's iconic, and then the droids, some sort of emotion, funny, angry, which is always what Chopper's so good. BD1 is the best, by the way. BD1 is like just the best droid in the universe, in the galaxy, all the galaxies. But I don't know, it's weird. I don't care much for the ship, and I don't care much for the droid. I thought that was interesting. Something else I noticed in this episode. So not a bad thing. It was just something that popped into my head. Like, wow, I never don't know the droid, or never don't know the ship. Like I know the design of the ship, and that's about it. Like I said, it's the earlier version of like the Emperor ship. And that's the coolest thing about it to me personally. I actually prefer like the original trilogy designs of what that ship eventually ends up becoming. But it's like that's all it really has to me. And then it's like, oh, it's our home away from home. Like it's really important. I was like, huh, I don't feel that way. Obviously I'm not living on it, but even watching it, I don't really feel that way. Other than that though, which caught me off guard, I really enjoyed the episode. I like what they did with the kind of the emotional element, Omega being there, being betrayed, trusting him again, realizing like, hey, this is what's happening. The team of course helps the planet. Omega at the end has a great moment with Tech where it's like, all these horrible things are happening and it's not just the Empire. And Tech was just like, well, fortunately, there's a lot of people just like us out in the galaxy, and that's a good thing. And I was like, that was actually a really cool, it was actually like a fantastic ending. And then the music was playing. I was like, that was an epic line. And knowing the Star Wars universe is like, wow, he doesn't know how right he is. And like, it was just interesting. It was like a really great line that fits within that universe, where it's like, he's saying it as it's hopeful because he knows how things are. And it's just like, that's really cool. For some reason, it just really hit as like the final line of the episode with the music playing. And it was like, he has no idea how right he is, but I do, because I'm a nerd and I've seen all this other Star Wars stuff. So I thought that was just a really great line. I really enjoyed that. But definitely a great episode. I thought it would have been great if they actually did make this like a two-parter where they show both episodes. I think it's actually a great full sequence. It's definitely separated, because once they get to it, it's like, all right, it's a very different episode compared to the last one. But I do think the kind of them talking about Echo and stuff, like the family element of the team, and then taking that team, with their slightly elevated, sense of bonding now into an environment where it's like people are basically brainwashed. Like, this dude was just straight up lying to them about the minerals even making them enough money. He had to lower wages, which is the craziest thing. And they fought over a bowl of soup. It's so crazy. You can say it a million times, but I like how they handle all of that stuff. And I thought it was cool, kind of going in both parts, because I like the last one. And this was definitely more intense. I wouldn't really say it's more action heavy. It's not really action heavy, considering they shoot like 2 blasts. They do some stealth and stuff. But it's not really action heavy, but it does feel intense. And I definitely like the episode for that. So definitely two really good episodes, I felt. So looking forward to the next, like 3 or 4. I have no idea. I feel like we're definitely more than halfway through the season. Not sure how many we have left, but I don't think it's very many. I don't think we hit even 20 episodes this season. I could be wrong. Hopefully I am. I would say more is better. We'll just say more is better for now. That can be risky, but I've enjoyed the season more than I haven't. So, who knows? But I would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. I like the thief character. Would you want to see that character return? That definitely seems like something that they easily tease, with that ending of, I owe you one. It's a great kind of spaceport for them to have when they need to escape, or when something random needs to be done. It's like, hey, what if we go to this planet? It's an easy story device, or it's like, boom, plot device, let's go back to our old buddy. And it's a classic animated Star Wars thing, at the very least, where you meet a character, who knows, they could go back, oh man, there's Hondo. Like, he can show up at any point, at any time, and you never really know. So they could go back there, meet 2 characters in one. It's very easy. But we'll love to know your thoughts on this episode. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.
You hungry? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Like I'm Shaggy. Man, I'm hungry. Man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Yeah, man. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry.